You've only gone and downloaded a multiplesources.net podcast. For more episodes of this show and a bunch of other content covering everything from NBA teams to professional wrestling, visit multiplesources.net. Multiplesources.net. But wait! Act now and you too could join multiplesources.net. Yeah, we're looking for people to do their own podcasts about different NBA teams. We're looking for blog authors, video highlight creators, basically anything you can think of to write about sports. You can kind of write or create to your heart's content. So if you want to help us and join this up-and-coming independent blog and podcast network monster, go to multiplesources.net. I'll stick something in the sidebar that says join us or something equally unfunny, so go and click on that. Join us.
Are you ready?
Oh yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome to It's Always Sunny in Phoenix, a weekly podcast where we keep you up to date on everything Phoenix Suns basketball. Today we are giving out some season report cards to the Suns roster, and then we will dive into the playoffs and check in on some ex-Suns along the way. I'm Charlie, and I have David with me today. Mitch graduates from Gonzaga tomorrow, so congratulations to him. How's it going today, David?
It's going good, Congratulations to Mitch, of course, is needed. And I'm feeling good about this, even though we technically recorded this last week and I screwed up.
Yeah, I was just going to let that one slide, but you brought it up. So
I need to take the bullet on that one.
Point the finger at David. And David, do you happen to know what Mitch's degree is in?
I could throw out like a business or something, but I might
How
be wrong.
about like Denver Bronco studies, or possibly Phoenix Suns studies?
Probably something like that, like Denver sports, or how to be a Suns fan when all your other sports that you like are Denver sports, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Well, anyways, congrats, Mitch. And let's hop right into things. Now that the regular season is finished up for now, it's been about a month, huh? But let's look back at our Phoenix Suns roster and chat a bit about how we think these guys played throughout the season. We'll go through the roster top to bottom and give everyone a grade and then elaborate a little bit on why we chose that. So let's start with the guy that looked like he really had a chance to make the All-Star team this year before he got hurt. Eric Bledsoe. David, take it away.
Yeah, Eric Bledsoe, I picked him as my Suns MVP, even though he didn't play the entire season. He played 30 games. He was the highest average for points for the Suns. He was the highest average for assists highest assists per game. I guess I could say it like that. Highest points per game, highest assists per game, and highest steals per game for the Suns. He really played very well for the Suns this season. He found his jump shot. He was knocking down threes. He was hitting that elbow jumper pretty well while still going at the basket with intensity. I loved his game this season, and so if I'm going to give him a grade, I'm definitely giving him an A.
Yeah, I'm with you right there. I'm giving Bledsoe an A as well. He just played 31 games this season, and man, I wish he could have been around for the full 82, but he put up 20.4 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, which is pretty solid for a 6'1" point guard. Then, like David said, led the team in assists and steals with 6.1 steals and 6.1 assists, 2.03 steals per game.
6.4 steals would be a lot.
Hey, that'd be great.
Be pretty awesome.
But anyways, those numbers are just great. I love the guy. Wish he would have stayed healthy. But that A grade definitely is what Bledsoe deserves. And let's move on to his other part of the backcourt, Brandon Knight. I'll take this one away first. When you talk about Brandon Knight, you think streaky. And that's the one thing I think about Brandon Knight is how streaky he is. He can start off a game going 7 for 8 in the first quarter, hold a good game through the second, and then in that third, something will click and he'll miss his next 10 shots in a row. We saw that happen a few times this year. Some games he got off to a hot start and then faded. Some games he just started off cold and really didn't find a way to get going throughout the night. But he is a good addition to this team in some sense. Some great depth at the guard, no matter what way you look at it and how we're going into next season. So I'm pretty back and forth on Knight, but I'll give him the B-. What do you think, David?
Yeah, with Brandon Knight, I've been pretty down on him most of the season. He is really streaky, but my grade is mainly going to be for when he was playing with Bledsoe. He only played about 20 games without Bledsoe. But with Bledsoe, there were times where both those guys combined for 60 points. We kind of talked about it when we were talking about the backcourt in general. So that's going to elevate my grade for him a bit. While his decision-making hasn't been good the entire season, the times with him and Bledsoe where they really went off has to elevate him to at least a B-. I can't really give him more than that just because the rest of it has been pretty rough. And if you look at as C as what you expected him to average, I think that's fair to say that he could have been a B- just because of the beginning of the season with Bledsoe.
Totally. Would have really liked to see those two share the backcourt all season. Who knows what that would have meant for Devin Booker's rookie year, but we'll leave that alone and be happy Book played the season he did. But let's move on to another guy, our starting small forward, the beast of the rotation, PJ Tucker. David, go ahead.
The Shark Pit, PJ. You gotta love PJ's game, and I know I definitely do. When you look at the season and you expect what he's going to do, you expect him to play defense and basically be a zero on offense. That wasn't the case, really, especially as the season progressed. He ended up becoming a little bit more of a distributor alongside Booker. He was leading the team in rebounds a couple of times. He led the team in scoring a couple of times for games, so he really started to bring it on and helped be excited for the last couple of games of the season, really putting it all out there. You gotta love PJ, and for that, I'm gonna put him in the tier under the Bledsoe. I kind of have these three tiers in my head where it kind of goes, you've got the Bledsoe tier, you've got a middle tier, and then you've got like the Brandon Knight tier kind of going on. And I'm going to put PJ in that middle tier. I think that he really played his heart out this season and did a little bit more than we expected.
Right on. Totally agree. You made some really great points. And one thing towards the end of the season when this was a historically bad season for the Suns, but PJ was amped up every night. He was excited. He was playing hard. He was playing smart. And that's one thing you got to just appreciate about the guy when some minds might be wavering by that point in the season. But PJ's defense is where he makes his money, obviously. Put him on the best guy on their team. He'll guard him. He'll get in his head. He'll do what he can to change the terms with that player, I guess would be a good way to say it. So I love PJ. I'm going to B+. And I hope he sticks around. I hope we don't trade him off. I hope he's just a good guy to have on your roster and a guy you don't want to face. So let's move on to the big A, Alex Len. Len played great through a few stretches this season, and then right after those great stretches, it'd be kind of the opposite. He was streaky, not in the sense of Brandon Knight, but more of like a week-to-week streaky. Yeah, inconsistency. There you go. Nicely said, David. But anyways, Len, he got pushed into playing that power forward role towards the end of the season, ran a lot of high post, high-low with Tyson Chandler, and he was always up high. that jumper is coming along a little bit. Hope he doesn't fall in love with it too much. And I hope he gets his back to the basket game going a little better. That's something I'd really like to see some improvement in from Len. But otherwise, I think I got to go with a B- for him on the season. What do you think, David?
Yeah, Len really started to put up some numbers when he was given a little bit more usage, given more touches. I have a hard time really giving him a high grade, though, because the inconsistency. Even when he scored a lot of points, his efficiency was kind of bad. I think, if I'm not mistaken here, his true shooting percentage his true shooting percentage for the season was pretty rough. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but I know that his field goal percentage is 42% for a big man. We'll just go with that. So, true shooting percentage 48 for a big man. That's not necessarily something you want. You want a high percentage because you want him doing most of his work in the paint. And at times, I know we asked him to do high post work, but it seemed like he was relying too much on that jumper to get him going. And that really stops me from giving him a higher grade. I'm going to put him in that Brandon Knight tier, but that Brandon Knight tier of B-, I think is accurate.
Gotta agree with that. And did you hear that Alex Len just saved a friend's life this past week?
I didn't. Tell me more.
Oh, okay. They were down in, I don't have the article up, but let's say Costa Rica. That's my guess. They were on the beach, choppy water. His friends went in. He went in first, and he told his friends, like, hey, that's pretty dangerous. And anyways, one of his buddies goes back out there, gets sucked into some waves, and he calls out for help. So his buddy is paddling hard, trying to get back to shore, and he keeps getting sucked back out like he's not going anywhere. These waves are intense. So Len jumps out there, and Len's a great swimmer, by the way. I need to look this article up so I can give credit to the author, but Len trains in a swimming pool, and he can swim for like 90 minutes straight or something like that. Something crazy like that. But anyways, Len gets out to this guy, and he starts pulling him in. And a lifeguard also gets out there after Len had been working at it for a little bit. And Len had to assist the lifeguard and keep pulling the rope to get this guy. I'm not kidding. He was like... He said he was on the bottom, like the ocean bed, the floor, pushing against it, like trying to get traction to pull. I mean, this is just crazy talk, but it really happened, and Alex Len just saved a dude's life. So
that's nuts.
By the end of this podcast, we need to look up who wrote that article and where it was from so we can give some credit and have the whole true story, because I may have butchered it a little bit. But Alex Len did save a guy's life, so there's that. Pretty cool stuff. And if I need a guy to save my life in the ocean, a 7'1", 260-pound guy like Len might be the way to go.
There's never a time where I really hear bad stuff. Len just seems like a really good guy whenever you hear about him. It's never anything really negative. It's always just good stuff.
Yep. Love Alex Len. So let's move on to the other half of the Twin Towers and talk about Tyson Chandler a little bit. David, you can start this one off.
So before we really get going, let's just single it out. Tyson Chandler was brought here to help try and lure LaMarcus Aldridge. That is the reason why he signed. That is the reason why we overpaid him. That's just how it is. That's what we were going for. That being said, he looked like he had lost a little bit. Like he was playing hurt a lot of the time. He didn't look as much like that guy that was playing in Dallas last year. But, I still don't think you can really bring down his grade that much, because when you look at what he was brought in to do, after LaMarcus Aldridge chose the Spurs, he was brought in to help us win, but he was also brought in to be a veteran leader. And that boosts his grade up for me a little bit. He had some pretty darn good games where he was almost getting 20 and 20. He had a handful of those, and I really just think from when you look at a leadership standpoint, you can't lower his grade too much. I mean, you can lower his grade, but it has to boost it up a little bit when you think of the impact that he's had on guys like Devin Booker. If you look at that series that Nash directed for the Players Tribune with Tyson and Devin Booker, and you look at that, you can tell that dude's having an impact in the locker room on the younger guys. So I'm going to give him a C+, but I'm still having him in that tier with Brandon Knight and Alex Len.
Totally. And I just looked it up. That was a Paul Coro article from AZ Central. So go look that up. That's a really great story. Just shows how great of a guy Len is, really. But anyways, back to Chandler here. I agree with everything you said. That locker room presence is something the Suns really needed. And, you know, with the whole Markieff situation and the bad talk about our front office last year from guys like Thomas and Dragic, we really needed a player there that was respected and could be trusted by other players, and Tyson was that guy. And on the court, he's a rebounding machine. I love that about him. Suns haven't had a center pull down rebounds like that in a long time. So that's really nice to have. And just being a mentor for Len and the other guys in the locker room makes me give him a C+, because I really would have liked to see more on the court from him. But towards the end of the year, him and Booker were really starting to gel on those pick and rolls, throwing the lobs. And I think keeping Chandler around for the next few years will be great for the team.
Agreed.
All right. So let's move on to some bench guys. And, well, let's change that up a little bit. Devin Booker, started on the bench, and then obviously with the injuries, made his way into the starting lineup and played great this season. David, take it away on Booker.
Yeah, you know, I think we've all been on the Devin Booker hype train for quite a while now. Even when I know when I was writing at the beginning of the season, all I could keep on saying was, man, I really wish Hornacek starts giving this kid more minutes. He was not having that many at the beginning of the season, but when we had Bledsoe go down, when we had Knight go out for an extended period of time, Booker was really able to start playing a lot, and I think he definitely made the most of it. He was on fire up until the All-Star break. Then the three-point shooting competition happened. He got in third behind Steph and Klay, as in Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, and beat out some other guys like JJ Redick and I don't remember who all else, but beat out some guys that are known for being three-point shooters. It was definitely intense. It was really awesome, and that's when other teams and other fans really were able to say, wow, this Devin Booker kid is pretty good. And you saw defenses start to double team him, start to really focus on him. His stats dipped right around there, but he started showing off more of his game, more of his facilitating, more of that. I loved Booker throughout the season. He totally exceeded my expectations going in, and he's just as important to this team right now, in my opinion, as Bledsoe. So I'm giving him an A.
Yep, I'm giving Booker the A as well. I was really surprised about how good this kid was. I wasn't expecting much of him coming out of the draft. And once I got to see him play a little bit, my opinions started to change. And midway through the season, I was on that hype train. I was the conductor of that hype train, I think. So,
choo-choo.
Yeah, but just, his game is great. And what really impressed me was how he's able to handle the ball and set up the offense if that's the case. But him on the pick and rolls is something really fun to watch. He doesn't pick up the ball too early, which I really like. He keeps that dribble to keep some options open. But he finds Chandler on those lobs really nicely, and we all know he's a great shooter, so those pull-up jumpers, those are usually money. So, man, love Booker. Got to give him the A. And let's move on to the guy that I may be the second most hyped about on the team, but we didn't get to see play the whole season, TJ Warren. He went down with that injury maybe 3/4 of the way into the season, 2/3 of the way. I'm not exactly sure right now, but that was pretty disappointing because I would have liked to see Booker and Warren really take over as the two big scorers on the team and just see what happens. We weren't going to win a ton of games this year anyways at that point, so I would have loved to just put the ball in those two guys' hands and see what happened. That three-pointer is really coming around for TJ, and those pull-up jumpers improved. His numbers have improved each season, so there's a lot to look forward to, and I'm just hyped for him to come back next year. Going with the B+ for TJ. Really wish we could have seen him the whole season, though. What do you think, David?
Yeah, if you look at TJ's percentages, he shot 50, 40, 70. Now, the free throw percentage isn't that good, but considering he shot 23.8% on three-pointers last year, and he was able to bump that up to 40%, that's ridiculous. And his shooting inside the arc it went down percentage-wise a little bit, but he was attempting way more. He went from 5.4 attempts per game to 9.4. 4 full shots more. And he really kept his percentage around the same. Dude knows how to score. And while he didn't get to play the whole season, he did play 7 more games than he did last year. I think you have to look at kind of that. I think if it wasn't for that, he probably would have played the whole season and probably would have ended up starting over a Twin Tower lineup, in my opinion. I think we probably would have just gone small instead because he was really good. He has a little bit of consistency stuff, which he needs to work on, which he's going to get there. He's really young still, and that consistency will come around. But he just completely was able to up his game from last year, and I'm expecting that this year. I'm putting him alongside PJ. I'm putting him in as a B. I want to give him a higher one, but I think him being above what I thought he could be is good enough.
Good call there. And let's stick on the bench with another young guy on the team. Let's talk about Archie Goodwin a little bit. You go ahead for this one, David.
Yeah, I've always kind of had a should we or shouldn't we with Archie. I've always been a little nervous about his game. I think that there were times, even throughout this year, that I thought we should just play him as a pure shooting guard or even a small ball, small forward and not even try the point guard. We attempted it a bit last year and we kept on working on it this year. But when we had 3 guys out, when we had Ronnie Price out, when we had Knight out, when we had Bledsoe out, and Archie was kind of thrown into the starting lineup as a point guard, he really shined and really showed an aspect of facilitating that I didn't expect from him. He really brought his game. He really looked like he could be a point guard. He's still raw. He's still growing, but I think that he could be our point guard off the bench if we're starting Bledsoe and Booker and then have Goodwin or Archie and Knight come off the bench as our first 2 guards. I think that's pretty good depth, and I think that's going to be pretty good, and I think he's only going to get better. I'm going to put him right along with PJ and TJ, and I'm going to put him as a B on my report card.
All right, and we agree with the B for Archie Goodwin. I really like watching Archie play, especially just because he takes it to the rim hard, and that's really his first option when he has the ball in his hands. He's looking to get to that rim. And he can throw it down on some guys and really turn the tides of a game and get the fans into it, get the teammates into it, even more than Alan Williams is already into it. But Archie's game, I would really love to see him add a jump shot. That shot it's pretty flat, to put it nicely. That's a flat jump shot. And I'd really like to see him get that turned around a little bit. He only shot 23% from downtown this year. That's pretty rough for a point guard, shooting guard type guy. And I know that's probably the one thing he's working on the most. And man, I just really like to see that improve before I give Archie a higher grade. But I was really impressed with that, getting thrust into that point guard role and really taking advantage of it, really playing good ball, still scoring points while facilitating, getting a few assists every game. So I like Archie. I hope he doesn't get lost in the backcourt next year in case we draft a guard or bring Bogdanovich over. I hope Archie still finds a way to stick around and get minutes here in Phoenix. Now, let's move on to definitely the MVP of the bench this year, Mirza Teletovic. And I'll just come out right away and say I'm giving him an A. He definitely surpassed my expectations this year. I knew he was a shooter. I didn't know he was that good of a shooter. He's automatic from downtown. If no one's in his face, Mirza's going to put it up and it's probably going to go in. He set that record for most threes from a bench player of all time in the NBA. That's definitely an impressive feat and something we love down here in Phoenix. And one more thing about Mirza, he's still down here in Phoenix working out at the arena. I think it was him, Bledsoe, and Knight were all still here. So with Mirza being a free agent this upcoming year, I think that's a pretty good sign. What do you think, David?
Yeah, I remember watching Mirza a little bit when he was on Brooklyn's team. I knew he had a little bit of some health issues. He looked a little rusty as the season started, but when he found his shot, I was blown away. I wanted him to take I wanted everything to be a catch and shoot. I know Eddie and Steve were giving him a little bit of a tough time and calling him no hesitation, but that's what I wanted him to do. I didn't want him to really try anything else. I wanted him to catch it and shoot it every single time. And he just about did. He, as he said, broke the record for the NBA for three-pointers off the bench. And dude's a sharpshooter. And I think that he wants to be here, especially that since we kept Earl, Coach Earl. And I really hope that we can bring him back next year. I am totally giving him an A. He is, as one of my... I only really have three guys that I think were the most important this season. Bledsoe, Booker, and Mirza is that other guy. Dude lit it up. Dude scored a ton. I love him on the team.
Please come back, Mirza. I hope they give you a good deal. I hope you're back.
Definitely.
Let's talk about a little more power forward depth for the Suns. Move on to Johnny Badger, John Lure. You take this one away, David.
Yeah, I like Johnny Badger. I like Wisconsin bigs. I don't know why I do, but I just do. And he had some flashes of some pretty good play. He had some times, especially in the second half of the season, where he really was the only guy that scored points for us in a quarter. Whether mainly against Utah, but I think that he played decently, but you can't really give him that high of a grade. His minutes were so inconsistent. He had a couple of injury issues here and there. They tried playing him at as a small ball center a lot of the time. And when you really look at it, if you go back to the Reddit's NBA, our NBA, and there was a post about a month ago, I think it was, right when the season ended, about the most average team. There were two Suns on that team, Alex Len and John Lure, and I think that's how you have to really look at John Lure. I think he is probably the average kind of stretch four off the bench. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's actually a pretty good thing, but I don't think you can really give him that high of a grade for that. So I'm going to go ahead and give him a C+. He's going to be in that lower tier for me, but I don't know if we keep him. I don't know what, but he's a pretty average guy, which is kind of a good thing on a below average team.
John Lure is just an ordinary average guy. That's a good way to put it.
Just your average.
So I'll give him the
guy.
So I'll give him that average grade of a C. I was hyped about Lure right from the beginning. Like right when we traded for him draft night, I said, "Oh, I like John Lure. He plays good basketball. I like his style." So I was excited to have him aboard. And then in the preseason, when he just dunked it right on DeMarcus Cousins' face hard, I was like, oh man, this guy's going to be great. He's probably going to make the All-Star game this year, maybe second team All-NBA. No, but seriously, I was excited for him, but he just really didn't do anything like that for the rest of the season, which, I wasn't expecting anything like that, but I expected more out of him. Lure, he can stretch it out. He can shoot the three a little bit. That mid-range jumper's pretty solid too. And he's athletic for a power forward. Man, I'd like to have him back next year just in case we need someone there, but I could definitely see us parting ways with him. So, yeah, C for Lure, and we'll see what happens with him next year. And let's keep it on the bench. Ronnie Price. Man, I was really impressed with Ronnie Price this year, and I'm going to give him the B+. His defense, first of all, is probably what's factoring into this grade the most. He pestered whoever was bringing up the ball every time he was on the court. He gave it 110%, but when he was on offense, he really kept the offense running smoothly and not trying to do more than what he should be as that third point guard role. But towards the end of the year, when he was thrust into playing a lot more minutes than all of us expected, that three-pointer is pretty solid, and he's very athletic. He threw down some really nice dunks towards the end of the year, which kind of blew me away. So, Ronnie Price, great third point guard off the bench. Maybe not your sometime starter, sometime backup point guard like we had to do. If we need a third point guard next year, I'd like to bring Price back. So B+ for him. What do you have, David?
Yeah, I have Ronnie in that B category. I thought he was right there with PJ when it came to defensive impact. While we didn't really bring him in as an offensive guy, he still was able to knock down at least a three a game. He averaged about 1.13 per game on 3.2 attempts. He was at 34.7%. So he was hitting at least enough for him to not be complete zero on offense. But when you looked at his steals, when you looked at everything else, his defense was incredible. I loved his defense just entirely. He was really giving guys a tough time, whether it be backups or starters. And I think that puts him into that level of the B, I think. And while I'm not sure if we bring him back or not, I think he made a case if we need another depth guy, he's there. He was one of our three veteran guys And I think that he really helped out when it came to the other guards off the bench. Or other guards are young guards, is what I meant to say.
Totally. Great locker room presence and great bench presence. I bet he's a good guy to sit by on the bench. He'd keep you focused on things and probably have some good pointers as being the veteran that he is. And another good guy on the bench, Big Sauce, Alan Williams. I'm just going to speak for the whole crew on this one and give him the A+. That towel waving method and the excitement he brings to that bench is incredible. Towards the end of this stretch for the Suns, this season was really tough to watch, and it was really refreshing to see him as excited as he was down at the end of the bench. So, no hesitation giving Big Sauce the A+.
I'm going to give him an A++, you know? I mean,
Well.
in all seriousness, let me go over some averages for you, all right?
Yeah.
41.7%. 15.4 points. Where's my rebounding? 20.1 rebounds. 2.1 steals. 2.6 blocks. I mean, sure, these are per 36s, but, you know, it all. Now I'm going to be serious. He was kind of cool. He only played 10 games for us. I loved Big Sauce. He really had that energy off the bench. But I'm sure we're going to bring him back. He's a Phoenix native. He's a little older, but, you know, if he just rebounds and, you know, gets dunks when we ask him to come on maybe 10 games out of the entire season, I think that he can get that role and maybe play a couple D-League games. You know, who knows? But, you know, I thought he was fun. I liked to see him at the end of the bench. And when he was in the game, the other guys were giving him just as much praise, or I guess were just as crazy on the bench for him whenever he made a play as he was for them. So that's always good to see. And you can just see that he's probably a pretty darn good locker guy for the Suns.
Oh, yeah, you could definitely see everybody else returning that praise back to Big Sauce when he got those minutes. And that was really fun to see. And, you know, Big Sauce, big excitement guy. And, you know, he might have been the highlight of the last few games of the season. Sadly, though, since he was that highlight, we're going to definitely switch gears and talk about the teams that are actually still playing basketball, worthwhile basketball. Let's talk about the playoffs a little bit and talk about some Suns that have been in these playoffs and that have made a bit of a mark on the playoffs. So let's do that first and talk about some guys that got eliminated in the first round. And the Spurs swept the Grizzlies, who just fired Dave Yeager. Not impressed with that move.
You know, from what it sounds like, it's a little understandable. I guess this is the second or third season in a row where he was requesting from management to take interviews, from what I heard. So he was actively kind of looking for or requesting to be interviewed. So I understand the firing from that perspective. It still sucks, but if he's kind of looking for a way out, I get it. I understand the firing.
Yeah, today I think I opened Bleacher Report and I saw Frank Vogel fired or done, and then Dave Yeager done, and then the Grizzlies should consider Vogel as a head coach option. So still plenty of coaching moves to be made this offseason.
If I'm going to be upset about a coaching fire, it's definitely Frank Vogel. That Indiana team completely overperformed last year when Paul George broke his leg in half and didn't play. And they still made the playoff, or almost made the playoffs. Not made the playoffs. They still almost made the playoffs. And then this year, where they basically had the Paul George and then the second half of the season, the Miles Turner show, and made the playoffs. I mean, there's no way Vogel should have been fired, but I don't know what Larry Bird was thinking.
Yeah, definitely an interesting move. I'm definitely interested to see where both of those guys land. And speaking of another guy who hasn't landed anything yet, Jeff Hornacek, I want to see where he ends up too.
Maybe Indiana.
Maybe. I did see the Kings were giving Hornacek an interview too, so.
Yep.
Horny and Boogie, best buds for life there.
That sounds like a match made in heaven.
Get a sitcom going about that before the season even starts. It'll just be gold.
Oh, man. What a
You're
train
gonna
wreck.
be a star.
What a train wreck.
All right. Okay. Well, let's get back to the Grizzlies. And one guy that's kind of made a mark for them is Matt Barnes, that used to be a Phoenix Sun. Barnes played about 35 minutes per game, scored about 11 points, grabbed 7 rebounds, 3 assists. Pretty great numbers. Grizzlies, you know, they didn't have anyone to be that dude for him in the playoffs, and that, I don't know. I wasn't expecting them to put up much against the Spurs anyways. But Barnes was definitely impressive this playoff series. What do you think?
Yeah, you know, for a team that had so many injuries and really limped into the playoffs, they got into good position because of their guys that ended up going out. And they had a patchwork of guys. They had, 28 guys that they had, different guys that they had signed or on the roster at some point during the season, something like that. Barnes,
yeah, 28, I think.
Yeah, Barnes is the classic guy of you hate him when you're playing against him, but if he's on your team, you kind of have to give him some praise. Dude really puts it all out there, and while he kind of seems like a tool half the time, you know, he's trying to win, and you got to respect that. He was, I mean, really putting it out. He's putting it all out there for the Grizzlies, and you got to respect that.
Totally. And another guy we should definitely talk about a little bit. Maybe we don't want to, but we should. Marcus Morris played really pretty solid against the Cavs, even though they got swept 4-0. But Marcus played 36 minutes per game, scored almost 18 points per game in the playoffs. That's really impressive, and the Pistons really couldn't get it going, but Marcus played some great minutes there, covered LeBron quite a bit, did as good of a job as you can against that animal. But, man, I'm pretty impressed with Marcus's playoff performance. What do you think?
Yeah, you know, over the season, he pretty much averaged right around what he had done about per 36 for us. Everyone's saying that he automatically did this leap and that we were crazy to trade him, all that other stuff. He didn't really overperform, but he still played well. His per 36s have never been bad. It's always just been his attitude that's been the main problem. He really was playing hard for the Pistons, and you know, he's one of those guys that Pistons team is starting to feel a little bad boys-ish in attitude alone, not necessarily in play, but in attitude. They're starting to get a little bit of that old Detroit attitude, which I think is good for that city. That's kind of how that team always is. Teams always gravitate back towards kind of how they always have been. You can see it with us. You can see it with just culture in general. And the Pistons, when they have a little bit of that attitude, are always a little bit more entertaining. Whether they're jerks or not, they're always a little bit more entertaining. And I think Marcus, while he didn't overperform, he still laid it all out there and is trying to help his team win.
For sure. And let's just say I'm just happy there was only one Morris brother in the playoffs this year.
Oh, definitely.
2. Oh, that would have been too much.
Two would have been too much. With the one sitting in the stands watching, that made me feel even a little bit better, actually.
I like that. That's a good point. All right, and then the final Sun we're going to check in that got eliminated this first round. Let's talk about Isaiah Thomas. And dude put up some big numbers in a few games. They ended up losing that series 4-2. I would have liked to see that one go 7. That was just kind of a fun matchup, I guess. But Isaiah was putting up 24 points per game, 3 rebounds, and 5 assists in about 37 minutes. And I think he put up 42 one game to join a list of some great NBA legends, Boston Celtics putting up numbers like that in a playoff game. And I'm a little sore watching him do so well, and especially another guy that's still around, Dragic. We'll talk about him a little later, but it's tough watching these two play such great basketball here in the playoffs. What are your thoughts on IT?
You know, when I watch IT, I don't necessarily see anything different with how he played for us. Dude has that offensive game. We knew when we had him, he had that offensive game. There's never been a question about that. I think that when I watch him play, I just think this is how he played. If he's throwing people off, that's what he did when he was with us. We had him off the bench. We didn't have him starting. Him starting and playing more minutes just means that he's going to put up more points. And it really didn't surprise me watching him play like that. Dude has a ton of heart. And it sucks that the circumstances went around and how they did last year. But, you know, we got a bad haul in hindsight, but you know, I expected some big performances on the offensive end from him, and it really hurt that they had Avery Bradley go down in that series. Otherwise, they might have been able to win.
Yeah, Bradley is a big part of that Celtics backcourt. That really did kind of do him in for that series. So let's move into this second round here, and we'll start off with the Warriors and Blazers. They are playing as we speak right now, as we record. So it's 2-0 as of now. Curry hasn't been around. He isn't playing this game. And if I were running the show for the Warriors, I'd say maybe put in Curry for the elimination game. Maybe just to get one game in before they go into the Western Championship, I guess. What do you think about this series, and what do you think they should do with Curry?
Yeah, you know, I do like the Blazers. I'm kind of hoping the Blazers can at least steal a game. I don't expect them to win. The Warriors are, even without Curry, they're still really good. The Blazers played just about how they needed to in Game 2, and the Warriors still somehow won. With Curry, I think that I kind of agree with you. I think you put him in for that elimination game. Try and shake off some of the rust. And maybe not really play him a whole bunch. Maybe play him 20 minutes. Just give him enough to get him back into kind of game speed, game rhythm, and get him ready for the Western Conference Finals. I think that he really isn't that far off from playing. So I would expect to see him in the last game of the series.
Yep, totally. And not to predict the future, but let's talk about the series that determines who will be playing the Warriors in the Western Conference Championship. Spurs Thunder series is at 2-1 Spurs, and it was really nice to see this series turn around after that first game. The Spurs just spanked the Thunder, which really surprised me. I think that surprised a lot of people that the Thunder would let a game get away from them like that. But they definitely came back and won the second there, and then the Spurs took the third game. That's just a fun series to watch. And man, I really have no preference who wins. I just want to see whoever gives the Warriors more of a run for their money take that one. What do you think?
Oh, I definitely have a preference for who wins. I might be a little biased, but I didn't actually watch the game, game 3, which means that I didn't have a night where I was pissed off the entire time because the Spurs won. I have a hard time watching the Spurs play, and especially when it comes to the playoffs. I felt that the officiating getting turned around and given the push from Dion and stuff, I felt that whenever those kind of games happen and the Spurs get some calls that don't go their way, that it's a little bit of karma. But that's also because I'm still salty about every single playoff game we played against them, or every game that we played against them. So I have a preference for who wins. I think the Spurs are gonna win. I think the Thunder, when it comes down to crunch time, I think Westbrook starts shooting the Thunder in the foot, and the fact that the ball isn't in Kevin Durant's hands as the main facilitator in the last 2 minutes every game blows my mind.
Right. Yeah, I feel you there. And I hate to bring up Facebook, but I got one of those notifications today, like on this day 6 years ago. I had a status, and it was Goran Dragic getting nasty. So I thought, was this that game? The one game I really remember the Suns just doing work to the Spurs, and it was. I looked up the box score. This is the game that Dragic had 23 points in the fourth quarter, and the Suns took game 3 in the Western semis over the Spurs. So that made me feel kind of happy today, but then I flipped on ESPN, and then Dragic was playing for the Heat, and the Spurs are in the playoffs right now, and then I just got sad again. So, yeah, quick note about that. But
Yay.
let's move on. Let's move on, talk about Dragic and all those ex-Suns on the Heat. This series has been really nice to watch. Heat versus Raptors. Raptors just took the game today to go up 2-1 in the series. And, man, I just like this matchup a lot. They just match up really well. What do you think?
Yeah, I think both these teams match up really well. I completely agree with you. As you said, kind of, before we started recording, that it kind of sucks that in Game 3 that Jonas Valanciunas and Hassan Whiteside were both out. Those dudes match up pretty well. Hassan for defense, Jonas for offense. I think that this series is pretty intense. The drop-off of Kyle Lowry in the playoffs for the 3rd year in a row, 4th year in a row, whatever that is really disappointing, and DeRozan's inefficiency is starting to get called up. I don't know if any of this is really new information when it comes to DeRozan, but, whatever. I think this is matched pretty well. I think if this were a regular season, if a regular season game, you would think that Toronto probably has the upper hand, but I don't know what crazy thing DWade Wade's going to do in the playoffs, because he's vintage DWade Wade just about. I just have no idea what he's going to do, what he's going to be able to do. And even if the Raptors are up 2-1, I'm still nervous if I'm them.
Yeah, for sure. And Dwayne Wade, I think he made 8 3-pointers in a row over the last 2 games. And the guy never shoots threes, or hardly shot any threes this season. And now he's just making it rain, just making them all. And man, he's definitely fun to watch. It's nice seeing a veteran superstar like him. Really, he's turning it up. Maybe this is his last, or getting towards the end of his years. Maybe he doesn't see a playoff run like this coming again. I don't know, but he's really turning it on. That's been fun to watch. And Dragic. Oh, go ahead.
No. I just wanted to add in on Dwayne. I think that if he wants to, I think he can definitely transition his game to being a sixth man in his last couple of years.
Ooh.
I think that he can do it, and I think that would really if they can get another two guard that can really play a high level, especially during the regular season. I think that if he makes that transition, that team could be pretty darn good, and I think he can play really well from that spot and then really bring it on in the playoffs, kind of like how Pop did with Manu for the Spurs. I've always kind of thought that was going to happen, and as the years kind of go on, I can see it still happening. Who knows if they actually do it, but that's kind of what I can see going on.
That's a really good call. I'd like to see that happen for him, and I'd really love to see him stay in Miami for his whole career.
I don't think he's going anywhere else.
Yeah, guys don't really do that anymore. Good on DWade for doing it. And let's talk about Dragic a little bit. He's definitely been the star of this series when we're talking about ex-Suns. And he's been putting up 25 points a couple of these games. He's going hard. He has the dentist on speed dial, getting teeth knocked out like every other game now, I think.
He has an enamel issue.
Oh, man. He should just get some bionic jaws in there or something. just not worry about it for the rest of his playing days. Or wear a mouth guard. Does he not wear a mouth guard?
After 3 broken teeth, you think that he would start wearing a mouth guard.
Yeah, and his face attracts elbows. I don't know what that's all about, but man, that poor dude. But anyways, Dragic, he's playing great ball. I miss him. I miss too many guys. Maybe I'm going soft, but I kind of like watching these guys play decent ball in the playoffs, and I think you're on the other side of the fence, huh?
I'm still a little salty about Goran. I'm starting to come around. I'm starting to feel a little bit better about kind of rooting for the Heat a little bit, just because they have so many ex guys, and I had some back in 2007 when they came out. I had some Dwayne Wade Converse, and Dwayne Wade off the court has always been a really great guy. On the court, he's not necessarily, but I mean, I'm starting to come around on Goran. I'm still a little salty. Man. The wound's still healing. It's still healing, but I'm getting there.
Gerald Green needs a ring. That's all I have to say.
Gerald Green needs a new haircut.
Man, this playoff edition Gerald Green, it's pretty interesting.
Sure, we'll go with that word.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Check out our last episode, see if he made it on our all-hair team. But let's round this up with the last series going on here. Cavaliers versus Hawks. Cavs are up 3-0. I really want to see someone beat the Cavs here. Think the Hawks can do it?
In the podcast that is now forever lost, I mentioned that the Hawks have the right defensive scheme to beat the Heat, but not enough firepower. I don't even think they have the right defensive scheme. That game 2 where the Cavs kind of just kept on hoisting up threes. I may be a little biased, but I totally agreed with Chuck on that one. Chuck Barkley, of course, saying that they should have started. He said taking guys out. He then said roughing guys up when the 3-point barrage was going on, but the Hawks just couldn't stop any of that. They couldn't barely defend any of that. So maybe they don't have the scheme, or maybe they do have the scheme and just don't have the players. I'm ready for someone to take out the Cavs. I never have been a Cavs guy. I've never rooted for the Cavs. I've definitely never been a LeBron guy. So I'm ready for that to happen. I'm kind of tired of just whatever LeBron team it is getting to the East or getting to the finals every year.
Yeah, I feel that exact same way. It's time for someone else to make that Eastern Conference, to win the Eastern Conference and then make it into that championship.
It's not happening this year.
I think we got a shout out. Yeah, it's probably not going to happen this year. Unless I think the Heat could maybe give them a run for their money more than the Raptors, but looks like it's going to be the Cavs there.
If DWade finishes the full evolution into Kyle Korver, maybe, but I don't think it's happening.
Yeah. Well, this second round of the playoffs has been fun to watch for the most part. Just pulling for the Hawks to notch one off on the Cavaliers and just make them play another one. Wear them down a little bit before we get to that Eastern Conference Finals.
Fingers crossed.
All right. And we're at an hour here, so I think that will do it for this week. Be sure to check us out on social media. Follow us on Twitter under the handle @SunnyInPHXPod. Find us on Facebook under the name Phoenix Suns Multiple Sources. Hit us up through email with questions or suggestions at sunnyinphxpod@gmail.com. Head over to our website at multiplesources.net/Phoenix Suns and the entire Multiple Sources blog and podcast network. Thanks for listening, and by the way, we are looking for a new writer to join us. Shoot us an email if you're interested, and we will be in touch. And we'll be back next week to talk about the upcoming draft combine and draft lottery, so be sure to join us again then. Enjoy the playoffs and go Suns.